Hi, everybody. Hello. We're here again with Deborah, replying to the questions that received in the last 2 weeks after our webinar. So, as a reminder, this is me, Anna Shopovski. I'm a managing partner at Code10, and the e-compliance product owner over here. And we have Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Anna. So yes, I'm Debora Pereira. I'm a global partnership manager at ecosio. So I handle all partnerships related directly to EDI and e-invoicing at ecosio.
Thank you. So we were talking about the French B2B electronic invoice mandate. You can check out our recording if you missed the webinar initially. And now we will be answering the questions that we received in the last few days. So first of all, the first one is, how are the e-reporting messages counted comparing to the e-invoicing messages?
Yes, so in this case, every report counts as one single transaction, same as for any invoice. So it counts as one single document. The difference is that it's an aggregated document with all tax and VAT information for all the invoices, depending that are aggregated in a time period, depending on what your tax regimen is. So in a 10-day period, for example, you aggregate all that information for all the invoices that you exchange and you put it in one single file.
Yeah, and from SAP side, so from your ERP point of view, it doesn't equivalent one e-reporting message to an accounting document. Like it could be an invoice, but it is a separate XML, well, UBL in our case, that will be sent to ecosio and will inform of this e-reporting information. Going forward, so for B2C aggregated reports, is each report counted as a single message, or is it based on the number of underlying transactions?
So this is a very similar question to the previous one, but it talks about specifically to end customers. And this also counts as one single message for the invoicing provider. So as one single transaction that is reported to the tax authority.
Yeah, and for SAP, at least for this solution, this doesn't apply because from our perspective, we're talking only about B2B, but this is a good thing to know for everybody. Next would be for cross-border B2B reporting real time. Are these counted the same way as standard invoices?
Yes, correct. So the same answer as before. It really depends on how often you have to report this, depending on your tax regimen, but it still counts as one single document, same as for the invoices.
Great, thank you. Next one would be, and I think this is a double one. We received two of these. They're very similar. That's why we are responding them together. So does this apply to my international sales? And how are business outside of France impacted by France's B2B mandate?
So I'll take the first bit.
Yeah.
And this is a point of frequent confusion. For domestic B2B invoicing, full invoicing is required. For international B2B, so meaning exports and imports and B2C, these transactions do not require invoicing, but they do require e-reporting. So the company must still transmit transaction data to the French tax authorities so they can track the VAT information.
Yeah, and from SAP perspective, right, B2B stays the same. So if B2B locals, France to France stays the same, it's under this legal mandate. However, outside of France, we do not send the electronic invoice, but we do have the document in our SAP based on which we create the e-reporting document, which we send to ecosio. And the next one would be about the data quality. So what new information do I need on my invoices?
So in this case, when we start working at ecosio, when we start working with companies and customers for the preparation for any invoicing mandate, we see that they're often surprised to find that their master data is not sufficient. So this is what for the French mandate, what they need to include: the siren number of the company's customer, the nature of the transaction. Is it a sales of goods? Is it service, or both? The payment address, if different from the head office, and the life cycle statuses. So the company must update the system when an invoice is either received, rejected, or paid.
Yeah, and this goes from SAP side. Of course, this is included in the Code10 e-compliance hub solution. So we have the statuses, the lifecycle status is included in the solution. And based on different mapping tables in SAP, we do get the siren number and all the new data that we need to send that is outside of SAP data. And regarding the SAP data, we need to make sure, together with the accounting team and the IT team, that the mapping is correct and the source of data itself is correct in order to send it in the proper way to ecosio and then to the tax authority. The next one would be, so is my current ERP enough or do I need a bridge? And what does the PA do that my ERP can't?
So this is also a very common question that we get. Most legacy ERPs cannot natively produce the specific French XML schemas or the UBL, the CII, or even the Facto-X format. So I would say that companies need to make sure that their ERP they're working with can export either flat file or what we say structured data format that contains all the new mandatory fields for this specific mandate, like the ones I mentioned before, the buyer siren number, the service goods category, also the status loop. How will the company's ERP receive these different statuses, the reject or refused, back from the government portals? Always a very good question and something they need to take a look at. And if the statuses don't flow back into their ERP, then it means that their accounting team will be flying blind, and they need this. They need this information to see what's the statuses on their invoices.
Yeah, correct. And this is exactly what the Code10 Compliance Hub does, not only managing the statuses, but also all the mapping that needs to be done from SAP data format to the structured format, like is the UBL XML. But also the PA is an entity that has been pre-approved by the French government. So not all ERPs can be that, right? It needs to be pre-approved, it needs to be tested, and it needs to verify that all data can be sent and
Exactly.
And structured correctly, right?
Exactly.
So the next one would be, well, similar, maybe, yeah, regarding the ERP again. What happens if the ERP is down when an invoice needs to go out?
So if in this case, if there's any issues with the connection, and since this is what we call a continuous transaction controller, CTC module, the companies cannot simply bypass the system. So they need a contingency plan for either a manual entry on the PPF, so the public portal, or they need a provider like ecosio that can offer sort of a offline buffering service and keep pushing and resending the messages until they are delivered to make sure that the company is compliant.
Yeah, and for big companies, we imagine that the manual entry would be a bit more difficult, right, and time consuming. So the buffering option is very good, but also
Exactly.
in SAP we get the status update. So even if at some point some of the connections don't work or there is something wrong, we get an update in SAP with the status. If ecosio is retrying or it's been sent or it has failed for whatever reason, then we get this information from the statuses in SAP directly. Next, how do you handle the NUR directory?
So ecosio, as a PA platform accredited by the tax authority, this annual or annuaire directory is the central directory for every company and their chosen platform. So in this case, ecosio will automatically check this directory before sending the invoice to ensure it reaches the right direction. The right
and this
destination.
is purely, yeah, and this is purely a role of a PA, right? I mean, SAP or the ERP don't really have much to say
exactly
in this step. Next, who owns the data quality on the customer side?
This is also a very common question that we have. It's sort of these invoicing mandates sort of became a hot potato that every department wants to pass on to each other within a company. And it's quite a big friction point between either IT or finance. In our opinion, on our experience, we would say that usually IT owns the connection to the provider and is the bridge between the provider and the ERP system that the company is using. And finance owns and has to own the serial numbers and all the VAT information, VAT codes that go within an invoice.
Yeah, and from SAP perspective, so the initial setup and the initial mapping or customization of the solution is done together with the team. So finance and IT work together so that everything is set up and mapped correctly, and then all the initial data from for all new documents come from the finance team, and then IT, as Deborah says, makes sure that all the connections are up and running and everything is passed correctly as it should be. So, what is the main concern for companies implementing the B2B mandate in France? Well, there are quite a few, no, Deborah?
Yeah. So in this case, and not just specific to the French mandate, but any invoicing mandate, whether it's not just about being compliant, is sort of a strategic decision as well. You have to make sure that your business is up and running and you're not paying any fines or disrupting your core business. So I would say that making your due diligence in time, researching the market, finding a provider that fits your needs, making sure your ERP is ready for what's coming and for what the specific mandate, in this case, the French, is demanding of companies. All the necessary fields can be fulfilled, and to make sure that you have enough time to implement, that you have an implementation team ready to help you with the specific mandate.
Yeah, and from SAP perspective, pretty much the same. Like, be prepared, take enough time to do the implementation, study the scope of the project, the type of the documents, different types of taxes that you have in the system, have a big set of data for testing, and make sure that all the processes and all the flows are tested and are implemented properly.
Exactly.
Mm, so, how much time realistically is needed to implement the French mandate? Oh, okay.
Yes, this is also a very common question that we get across the board for every mandate. There really isn't one type of answer for this question. It really depends on what the customer has on their ERP side, how many legal entities, how many ERPs they have. Sometimes we're talking about multinational companies that have different ERP systems. So it really depends. Who are they working with on the implementation side? Either they have their own in-house team. Do they have previous experience working with e-invoicing or not? And if they're working through a partner like Code10, does that partner has enough speed, enough support, and enough knowledge on the specific ERP to help the customer and work hand in hand with ecosio and the invoicing provider? So it really depends. It can range from 3 months to 8 months to a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly. There is not really one number that we can give for these implementations. It depends on the, as Deborah said, legal entity. So the company codes that we have, the process flows that we have in SAP, document types, tax types, etc., etc. The availability of the teams that are implementing both on the customer and on implementation side, pretty much everything plays a role over here. So as much dedication and time and attention we place in this, it will be faster. But also we need to be aware of the volume that we have at our hands for the implementation itself.
Exactly. Mhm.
So yeah, that was it from us today. So thank you very much. And if you have any further questions that were not answered, you can always reach us at these email addresses on LinkedIn. And yeah, we are here to answer any further questions that you might have. Thank you very much for your
Absolutely. Thank
attention.
you. Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.